Earlier on, Prince Harry was ordered by the UK High Court judge to explain why he deliberately deleted evidence in his phone hacking case, and the judge has now demanded that he recover all the deleted data. I have DC lawyer John Witherspoon with me for his reaction and analysis and to discuss how this might affect his US visa application case. Hey up everyone, it's me, Stef the Alternate, your nerdy alternative, and welcome to another dose of the Daily Nerd, where I break down the royal news and gossip of the day that's pretty much caught me eye, and oh my goodness, let's jump into all the madness, shall we? Now, if you missed my previous two Daily Nerds from earlier on today, I definitely recommend that you tune into them and you watch them, because this is a continuation of these two videos that you see on screen right here. But in the meantime, for this one, I am joined by my good friend and lawyer based in DC, Mr. John Witherspoon. How are you doing, mate?
I am good, Steph. How are you?
Oh, I'm not doing too bad. Thank you so much yet again for taking time out of your busy day to do this little video with me. But yeah, just to kind of recap for those that didn't catch the videos earlier on, and like I said, do watch them because you'll have all the details then. Initially, earlier on in the day, Prince Harry was accused of deliberately destroying potential evidence. Now, what is this potential evidence? Well, these are messages between himself and his spare ghostwriter, NGN Newsgroup newspapers that Prince Harry is fighting against in this phone hacking case. They want those messages. The other deleted data are the previous kind of transcripts, the previous drafts of Spare. NGN want those as well. Now, since then, the judge has ordered Prince Harry to A, provide a statement to explain and discuss how and why all this data was deleted, and B, judge is like, now you got to recover that data at all costs. No joking around, get it done. The judge also was extremely surprised that it was Prince Harry that was actually providing this information to NGN. Judge turning around and basically saying, well, hang on a minute, this is rather remarkable, and gave him cause for concern. Now, Harry's legal team was turning around and saying, well, he's comfortable and has a lot of experience providing essentially disclosure to the other side. But the judge is like, no, you guys should do it. The legal team should do it, not Prince Harry. Now, Prince Harry has a little bit of a track record of not doing things according to the book, allegedly, however you want to put it, right? Because in a separate case where he's looking for essentially the UK taxpayer to pay for his security whenever Megsy and the children come over, he had to apologise a couple of months back for breaking confidentiality rules in that particular case because he shared private information about that case outside of the trusted circle, particularly with the Veterans Minister, Johnny Mercer. So essentially, John, you have Prince Harry with now this track record of not seemingly playing by the rules when it comes to his various court cases. And this took the eye of Niall Gardner of the Heritage Foundation, who's currently suing the Biden administration to get his visa application documents, saying this is not a good look for Prince Harry. So first and foremost, in terms of the very, very brief kind of overview that I gave you, John, in terms of what happened today with the phone hacking case, what is your reaction and your thoughts on that?
Well, I agree very much with Niall Gardner and what you've just said, Steph. The look is not good. There's no question about that. And the reason that it's not good is that there are some parts of a legal case. It doesn't matter if it's in the UK or the United States or anywhere in the world, really, where they have a developed legal system, where there are some things that are just basically sacrosanct. And one of those is that you're really trying to find the truth at all costs, even to the extent that if you have evidence that is helpful to the other side of the case, you are required to turn that over. By the same token, if you have evidence that could be important to uh, the judge or the jury in a particular case, you are required to make some particular efforts to make sure that that evidence is not damaged or destroyed or anything like that. And even if you think there might be a use for some information at some point in the future in a legal proceeding, you have an obligation to take good care of that and make sure that it is safeguarded and make sure that it is not destroyed or put out of reach somehow in a way that is going to make it harder to get to the truth in the case, as I was talking about just a minute ago. So it's very understandable that the judge would say, hey, you need to recover this information, and you also need to provide an explanation of what happened to it in the first place. And the other thing that's important to keep in mind is, let's say you do lose some information and you then step forward when you're asked and say, well, I'm sorry, it's gone, I don't have it anymore. And then somehow, I think in this case, Harry had some Hotmail accounts or Gmail accounts that he was using for email correspondence back and forth. And he says, oh, well, I've closed those accounts and that information is all gone. Well, that may be the case, but it may also be the case that somebody can go to Hotmail or to Gmail or to the particular phone company that he has his cellular service with and say, hey, we want to recover all of his text messages. We want to recover all of his emails that were in this closed account. And the email providers like Hotmail or Gmail, they know that these types of requests might come along. So just because Hotmail has said, okay, the account's closed, you're not going to be able to recover those messages, they're gone. That may not be entirely the case if a judge comes along and says, hey, Hotmail, hey, Gmail, whoever it is, we want your backup tapes from a certain period of time, a certain number of years ago. So that, I think, is important information for anybody to know. It's especially important for somebody like Prince Harry to know. And I'm kind of surprised that he wasn't aware of it to begin with. If he claims, oh, I didn't know I was supposed to retain all of these emails and text messages, if he comes forward and says that, he's not going to look very intelligent.
No, he's not. And my understanding is you cannot argue ignorance in a court of law. That's just not good enough. Now, as we were discussing this behind the scenes, you mentioned that destroying evidence when you know or should know that litigation or court case is looming is very problematic, pretty much wherever you are in the world. Why would you say that?
Because, again, it gets back to that question of the court system being set up and organized in such a way that they are looking for the truth. So any type of foolishness that impedes the court's ability to find the truth is going to be considered very problematic. And that can take the form of destroying evidence. It can take the form of witness tampering. It can take the form of filing frivolous motions or something that that slow down the the path to justice. And because the court's time is so valuable, and because the courts are so interested in making sure that they have a truthful and just outcome in a particular case, the penalties are quite severe. If a lawyer, for instance, is found to have been involved in not turning over evidence to the other side, or if a plaintiff or a defendant is found to have hidden or withheld some evidence of some sort, the judge can impose some sanctions, as they call them, and that can be in the form of precluding certain evidence from being brought into the case. It can involve jail in a worst case scenario. It can involve a financial penalty, at least in the United States, uh, 10,000 or more dollars, depending on the severity and how upset the judge is. So it's a very, very serious situation. It's not something that anybody should come anywhere close to in terms of even a suspicion that there's been some sort of foolishness or an attempt to, as I've said several times, get actually the truth of what it was that happened in a particular case.
Okay. And so when we look at the ongoing US visa case between the Heritage Foundation and the Biden government, you also mentioned behind the scenes that it would actually be hard for Prince Hazza to actually destroy any evidence in this particular case. If it was so easy for him to deliberately destroy evidence in this current phone hacking case against NGN, why are you saying that with the visa case, it would actually be more difficult for him to do that?
That's a great question. And the answer is that all of the information that is relevant in this particular case is information that he was required, presumably, to provide when he filled out his visa application and when he spoke to the State Department officer at the US Embassy in London or at a consulate somewhere else in the UK, assuming that that's what he did, assuming that he's not on a diplomatic visa. He would have had to come through and provide an interview and so forth. If he lied in the interview or if he falsely answered the questions on the paperwork, those situations carry their own types of penalties, which are not unlike the penalties for destroying evidence in court. But all of the information that is relevant to his visa case is already in the hands of either the US State Department or Department of Homeland Security or one of the other agencies that processes and handles visas and admission to the United States. So once they have all that information, it's not as though he can go in somehow and get any of it back or change it or any of that stuff. It's basically there, it's set in stone, and it is what it is. So if he wasn't truthful, that's going to, have to be something that gets dealt with on its own, and it's not going to be a case of him destroying any evidence because, as I said, all the evidence has already been given to the U.S. government, and at this point, it's also incidentally already been given to Judge Nichols.
Yeah, who's currently deciding whether or not it should be released to the Heritage Foundation. And for those that are saying, well, it's taking so long, why isn't he decided yet? John has explained actually in a previous video that judges have to actually make rulings on cases in a chronological date order, so he may not actually be on Prince Harry's case yet because he's dealing with the backlog and he's just waiting for Prince Harry's then just to come up in, again, chronological date order. Would that be a fair assessment of that particular criticism, John?
That's exactly right. It's like in a judge's chambers, at least in the United States, for the most part, unless there's some sort of an emergency type of a case, an emergency motion of some sort, the paperwork flows just like it would down an assembly line in a factory, and the judge and his staff, his clerks, go through the cases and do the research and so forth, everything that they need to do, write the opinion, and they pretty much do that in a given order according to the way the cases came into the judge's chambers to begin with. So I'm confident that there has definitely been some work done on the case. How much has been done, I'm not sure. When they will decide, I'm not sure. There are some judges that are known to be very expeditious in terms of how quickly they get their decisions out. There are some cases that are a little bit slower. There are some who are notoriously slow. I don't know what Judge Nichols' reputation is, but he is a relatively new judge. He's a relatively young judge. My guess would be that he's probably pretty good at getting the things taken care of that are on his desk. Usually it's the older judges, the more senior judges that tend to slow down a little bit. And, they're not as concerned about what people are going to think of them. But it'll come out at some point. Have faith, I'm sure.
It will all come out. And as soon as it does, make sure you definitely subscribe to this channel because we've been keeping you guys up to date since the beginning. So as soon as the judge makes a ruling on the whole visa case, we will certainly let you know. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. Give this video a good old-fashioned like. Comment down below your opinion, conspiracy theories, whatever's. And if you've got some very strong opinions about the legal developments for Prince Hazard today, then make sure you also send me a super thanks. It's just below this video right here. We can have a conversation about it because it does guarantee a response from me. My big major thanks again to John for joining me on this video. Appreciate you, mate. And until the next time, you guys, laters.